A nation is crumbling under the weight of its own lies. Floods are not just engulfing the land, they are sweeping away the propaganda, the false confidence and the arrogant self-assurance that the Beijing regime has tried to maintain for decades. What is being submerged is not only homes, fields, or roads, but an entire political system built on suppression, censorship, and disregard for warnings. From Hunan, Hubei, Sichuan to Huizhou provinces are successively plunged into crisis. Dams hastily constructed during the Great Leap Forward, with substandard materials and no real technical oversight, are crumbling one by one, just like the system that created them. Over 90,000 dams, most built in the last century, now stand as tombstones for the faith in the regime. While the government insists that flood control projects are great achievements, in reality, hundreds of thousands of people are climbing onto rooftops for rescue roads are torn apart, and bridges vanish as if they never existed. In Yuyang, a small shop owner wept as her store was swept away in the night. 20 years of building with over 300,000 yuan still owed to the bank, but no one is coming to help. In Ximan, the harvest was completely destroyed. In Sanjiang, a shop that had just opened was entirely submerged by water. All share the same cry for help. We called, but no one answered. The government claims to have spent billions of yuan on flood prevention. But when disaster strikes, people see only roads turning into rivers, cities into swamps, and promises washed away by water. Over 420,000 people have been affected. 110,000 have been forced to evacuate, and countless others have been abandoned by a system that prioritizes image over lives, growth over safety. In Fuba, an ancient town over 1,000 years old in Luzhou, Sichuan, just one night of rain submerged it entirely. Ancient houses were completely flooded with rooftops protruding from the water as the last remnants. Drone footage shows raging, muddy, brown waters carrying away house debris, objects, and hope. Residents received no warning, no sirens, no evacuation, just a nightmare descending in the night. In less than 10 minutes, water reached my bed. One survivor wrote, "The problem is not the rain, it's the system. Why does a country with nearly 100,000 dams still drown in chaos?" The answer lies in a blood-soaked history buried deep. From the 1950s to 1970s, under Mao Zedong's political pressure, tens of thousands of dams were built by unskilled labor without blueprints, without technical oversight, just fast and politically obedient. The result, Tofu-Dreg dams, seemingly sturdy on the outside, but hollow and rotten within. Dissenting voices like engineer Cheng Ning were sidelined, and risk reports were buried. From 1954 to 2021, over 800 dams collapsed, an average of one dam failure per week for 70 years. Most of these incidents were never disclosed. The 1975 Bangqiao Dam disaster killed over 230,000 people and was hidden by the Chinese government for over 3 decades. It wasn't until 2000 that the truth was revealed by foreign researchers and survivors not from Beijing. In 2020, the truth was distorted again. Heavy rains poured down on Henan and Hubei provinces. Authorities deliberately opened floodgates, submerging an entire city just to protect the capital, Beijing. No warnings, no evacuations. People returned to ruins and asked, why must the countryside die to keep the capital dry, even the 3 gorges? Damn, the grandest symbol of mastery over nature failed. In the 2020 flood season, over 54 million people were affected. The government claimed the dam functioned as designed, but people saw their homes submerged. Words cannot replace reality. Today, over 800 dams are rated at critical risk of collapse. 33,000 structures have never been safety inspected. Among the dams maintained, many reports are falsified, budgets are siphoned off, and repairs are delayed. When water rises, the government's first instinct is not to rescue, but to silence. After the 2008 Sichuan earthquake, billions of yuan in donations vanished into bureaucracy. People lived in tents, while aid rotted in warehouses. The Red Cross of China, once a symbol of relief, is now seen as a symbol of betrayal. Trust is shattered. People no longer wait. Volunteers carry supplies into flood zones, delivering food and medicine. "We don't trust anyone anymore," one person said. "If we don't act, no one will." This is no longer a climate crisis. It is a judgment on a regime that only knows how to build walls, not repair them. China today is paying the price, not just for the weather, but for forgotten warnings, outdated infrastructure, and a government that only knows how to hold power, not people. And in the future, the question is no longer when will the next disaster strike, but how many more lives will be sacrificed to hide the truth. The silent collapse of Suzhou, the flagship city no longer breathing, while natural disasters expose the weaknesses of flood control systems. An economic earthquake is shaking the social foundations of cities once seen as symbols of progress, and Suzhou is the clearest example. The city, once dubbed China's manufacturing capital, home to thousands of foreign-invested enterprises from Japan, South Korea, and Europe, is now in free fall amid a real estate crisis. Not due to war or disease, but because of a silent wave of capital withdrawal triggering a domino effect of collapsing supply chains, confidence, and the property market. According to data from the Suzhou Municipal Bureau of Statistics, real estate transactions, including residential office and commercial properties, peaked in 2020. But since 2022, as incomes plummeted and unemployment soared, the market began to nosedive. By February 2025, over 64,000 homes were listed for sale at drastically reduced prices, a statistic not just of numbers, but of the desperation of homeowners needing to sell to escape mortgage debts. In Suzhou's high-tech zone, a golden area with numerous upscale developments, a 130-square-meter apartment in the Shangrui Pavilion, once priced at nearly 6 million yuan 2 years ago, is now worth about 3.5 million. A loss of nearly half its value, and still no buyers. Mr. Guo, a longtime resident of the area, said, "The real price drop is much worse than what's reported. My home was over 35,000 yuan per square meter before. Now it's under 15,000, and even at 10,000, no one's buying." He looked directly into the camera and said, "No one believes the market will recover." What's striking is that Suzhou is no ordinary second-tier city. It was once a new first-tier city, second only to Shenzhen in export volume. Its GDP surpassed Guangzhou, ranking among the top 4 nationwide. But now the harsh truth is emerging. Foreign-invested companies like Samsung, Sony, and Philips have left Suzhou for Vietnam or India, where costs are lower, labor is more stable, and most importantly, they aren't stifled by China's political stability policies. Mr. Guo was blunt. Both of Suzhou's major districts depended on foreign companies. Kunshan relied on Taiwanese investment, the new district on Japanese. Now they've all left. When one big company goes, dozens of smaller ones collapse. The city is almost lifeless now. The crisis isn't just about housing prices. It's about livelihoods. People have no money, dare not spend, and have lost the dream of owning property, as Mr. Guo put it. Now, whether it's migrant workers or the so-called white-collar intellectuals, they're all leaving. Some become delivery drivers. Others return to their hometowns. No one thinks Suzhou will return to its glory days because the root cause is people have no money. Another local real estate expert, Mr. Yu, said the Suzhou property market is severely polarized. Some areas still have high or slightly rising prices, but many others are in free fall. In our 6 districts and 4 counties, each area is different, and the sell-off will continue. Buyers are cautious, sellers are anxious, no one believes property will hold its value anymore. But the real blame lies not with the people, but with the system. When economic growth relied on a real estate bubble, when the government encouraged borrowing to stimulate consumption, and when everything had to serve political stability over market logic, collapse was only a matter of time. The city, once a proud industrial hub, is now a warning. And the most alarming part is the government has no solutions. They dare not pump money into the market for fear of inflation. They dare not let companies fail for fear of instability, and they dare not release real data for fear of public panic. All of this creates a cycle of avoidance where the people are the ultimate victims. China, where natural disasters, human failures, and economic collapse converge into an unprecedented tragedy. On one hand, floods from broken dams and heavy rains expose the weakness in infrastructure management. On the other, the real estate crisis reveals the failure of economic governance. But both point to a common truth: the failure of a governing system that puts power above truth image, above lives. And while the Chinese people lose their homes, fields, and hopes those responsible remain silent. Silent.